knowing is half the battle.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Welcome to Toon Travel. Hiya, Toonsters. You're listening to Toon Travel. I'm Paul Siebert.
And I'm Faith Casto.
And Faith, as we are recording this, we have reached the 1-year anniversary of the first episode of Toon Travel arriving on YouTube.
Ooh.
Yes, it is our Weird Alversary, our Scoobiversary. And I had surprisingly quite a bit of Scooby-Doo and Weird Al related media to choose from. A few years ago, they appeared in an episode of Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? There was also a segment on Batman the Brave and the Bold that featured both Scooby-Doo and Weird Al Yankovic, but I chose a Saturday morning preview special from 1984 called the ABC Saturday Preview Park. But before we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about the premise of the show.
Alrighty.
I'm a giant squirrel. You're a plant monster. We have a time machine called the TOON. That's Temporal Observation and Orbital Navigation Machine. And we traveled through time to catalog and study the cartoons and cartoon-adjacent media from the past.
Yep.
All right, so Faith, before we get started here, I do want to make a media recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
It is a movie that you can watch on Hulu Plus and Disney Plus, and it is Predator Badlands, which is the new Predator movie from the director of Prey that came out last fall. It is about a young predator trying to prove himself by going to this alien planet and fighting an alien, not the alien from Alien, but this seemingly unkillable monster. And along the way, he meets this android who is very quirky, and they almost have this like buddy comedy thing going on. And it is also by far the most violent PG-13 movie I have ever seen. Yeah, there is apparently whoever made this film realized, wait, we can do whatever we want to robots and aliens. Again, not the alien from the movie Alien. So as long as the movie doesn't have any humans in it, we can do anything we want.
Yeah.
So is there any media you'd like to recommend to our listeners this episode?
Honestly, you bringing up that movie kind of reminded me. I have actually recently been watching The Last of Us. It was pretty popular there for a while. It might still be, but I haven't seen much about it. It always seemed interesting, and then I had a dream related to The Last of Us as a concept, so I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to watch this while I have some time to myself.
Now, I have not watched The Last of Us or played the video game from which it's based on, but is it sort of like Walking Dead? I know it's about zombies.
Yeah, honestly, it is somewhat the concept is kind of like The Walking Dead, but it follows like an apocalypse where this like parasitic fungi type of thing called it's cordyceps or something like that. Yeah, it's like this parasitic infection, but it kind of turns them into these like weird fungus growing creatures, and it's an interesting concept. And I will say the way that the episodes are laid out is like very interesting, and I kind of like it.
That's good to know. So, Faith, I'm just wondering, this may be me being old man and getting kind of curmudgeonly in my years, but I was wondering, what exactly does Gen Z do on Saturday mornings?
Usually I sleep and then watch YouTube.
I see, because I think it's great being able to watch cartoons on demand and having access to them 24/7, but I miss destination programming.
Yeah, honestly, now that I think of it, on the topic of like programming, I actually saw like a thing on Instagram. It was like a post, obviously, and it was like whimsical, nostalgic websites for you to try. And one of them was, I think, nostalgictv.com. It basically takes you to this website where like all this media from like the I want to say like the 1950s to the early 2000s.
Interesting.
And it's very interesting. It's super cool because it has like this little TV and you can click different channels because it gives you like a remote. And that was put in air quotations because it's not actually a remote.
Right.
And then you can change to different like things you can do. You can go from ads from whatever years. You could do movies, comedy, romance. They even have like an SNL channel, surprisingly.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So, Faith, I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on Scooby-Doo? And was this special your first introduction to Scrappy-Doo?
It actually was not. I actually grew up watching all things Scooby-Doo. I loved Scooby-Doo as a kid. I can't remember what movie. I think it was like the live action one.
Yeah, the Matthew Lillard one where Scrappy was the bad guy.
Yeah, I kind of didn't like that because that was not his character at all in any of the like original shows. So it kind of threw me off. And it was a little weird for me, like, I guess the transformation point of it, but
yeah,
sorry.
Oh no, don't worry. The people producing that movie, it did feel like they were people in a glass house throwing stones.
Yeah.
There are people my age who will insist that Scrappy is the worst thing to ever happen to Scooby-Doo and that the character is terrible. And I think the Scrappy years are wildly uneven. I think the first season of Scooby and Scrappy Doo is fine. I think the dynamic of having Scooby, who's a lovable coward, with a character who's comedically brave works.
Yeah.
It's just in the later seasons, two things happened. The first thing is they cut back on the cast. So Scrappy went from being a side character to the main character, and they cut back on time, so they no longer had time to do proper mysteries. And apparently this was for two reasons. First reason is the writers were kind of burned out. So Mark Evanier, who was one of the writers that worked on a Scooby-Doo and a ton of other TV shows, wrote an essay called I Created Scrappy-Doo. And he explained the reason that they stopped doing mysteries for a while is they had done so many mysteries. People were getting burned out, and people were like, oh, let's do an anteater ghost this week. And someone would say, oh, we did an anteater ghost in season 6.
Oh.
The other reason is they cut back on the length of the episode, so it could be paired with another cartoon like Laugh Olympics or Richie Rich or whatever. And with only 7 minutes, you didn't have time to set up a proper mystery and suspects and finally unmask the bad guy. So you had a few years where the Scooby-Doo cartoon, they didn't know what they were doing. Sometimes they were encountering real monsters. Sometimes it was like a Wizard of Oz parody with Scooby-Doo. They just didn't know what to do. And I think the Scrappy character got better as the series went along. I think he's perfectly fine in the new Scooby-Doo mysteries, and I think he's fine in 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, which was a ambitious, albeit unfinished show that we may have to talk about down the line. But, you know, I don't hate him.
Yeah, my honest first, like, I guess, introduction to Scrappy-Doo as a character were, like, the one-off sort of mystery, like, Scooby-Doo sort of movies that they had on, like, VHS.
Yeah, there was this series of made-for-TV movies called the Hanna-Barbera Superstar 10, and they had 3 Scooby-Doo movies. There was Scooby-Doo Meets the Boo Brothers, Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, and Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, which seems to be the favorite of a lot of people because it had cute little monster girls in it.
Yeah, I do remember watching those ones, actually. There was also one where they were, like, in the snow or something, and I remember they were at, like, a lodge of some sort, and it was Christmas.
There might have been a Scooby-Doo Christmas special, I forgot.
Maybe.
But anyway, Faith, I think it's time to talk about our defunct sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
And each episode is brought to you by a product, good, or service that no longer exists, and we can no longer be paid for our sponsorship because it has ceased to be.
I wish we could get paid, but...
Yeah, and this episode's sponsor is the 1984 McDonald's Olympic game.
Feel like you're part of the Olympic action. Play McDonald's. When the U.S. wins, you win Olympic game.
What's your event? Women's freestyle relay. If the U.S. wins, then I win.
When the U.S. wins a medal in the event on your game card, you win a Big Mac. Or regular fries. Or regular Coca-Cola. Or win up to $10,000 instantly. So go to McDonald's and collect your game cards. Because when the U.S. wins, you win.
Let's go, USA! Let's go, USA! Let's go!
And to promote the Olympics, McDonald's had a promotional contest called U.S. Wins, You Win. And with each purchase, you got a little scratch-off piece that had the name of the sport on it. So you'd scratch off the piece and it'd say 100-meter high hurdles. And if the U.S. team won, you would get a prize. So if there was a bronze medal, you'd get a soda. If there was a silver medal, you'd get fries. And if there was gold, you get a Big Mac. There was just one problem. The Soviet Union and their Eastern Bloc allies boycotted the Olympics, meaning Team USA faced much less competition, resulting in Team USA scoring a record of 83 Olympic gold medals.
Wow.
That is a lot of Big Macs.
It was.
This did result in a classic parody bit in the Simpsons episode Lisa's First Word.
Great spot, Casey.
Put a sock in it, Preppy. How much are these free burgers gonna cost me?
Not to worry, Mr. K. We rigged the cards. They're all in events that communists never lose.
I like.
This just came over the wires, Big K.
Uh-huh. Soviet boycott. U.S. unopposed in most events. How does this affect our giveaway?
Let's see. You personally stand to lose $44 million.
I will spit in every 50th Krusty Burger. I also grabbed a newspaper back when we were in 1984, and not much had changed since the last time we were there, because back in episode 6, Laughbusters, that special took place the same week.
Oh, wow.
But in the world of sports, on September 6, 1984, New York Mets pitcher Dwight Gooden set a new National League record for the most strikeouts by a rookie. With 228 in one season, nicknamed Doc, the pitcher would win the National League Rookie of the Year award, and the following year, he would receive the prestigious Cy Young Award. In 1986, he helped the New York Mets win the World Series. On September 7th, the movie Blood Simple, the first film produced by Joel and Ethan Coen, premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. The film was about a bar owner who hires a private eye to spy on his cheating wife, but things soon take a murderous turn. Other films produced by the Coens include Raising Arizona, Fargo, O Brother, Wherefore Art Thou, and No Country for Old Men.
I've actually watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
It is a classic, and the Coens, they are serious filmmakers. For the weekend of September 7th through September 9th, the #1 movie in America for the second week in a row was Tightrope, a police thriller starring Clint Eastwood as a cop playing a game of cat and mouse with a serial killer. We talked about this one in episode 6. Other films rounding out the top 5 that week were Ghostbusters, Purple Rain, The Karate Kid, and the Gene Wilder comedy, The Woman in Red. So, Faith, are you a fan of Weird Al Yankovic?
I don't know if I've ever, watched anything with him in it.
Oh, he is a brilliant comedy musician. And I think if you want to learn about a year, study a Weird Al Yankovic album, because he will discuss what movies were popular, what songs were popular, what food people were eating. They are just remarkable artifacts.
That seems interesting.
But Weird Al Yankovic was born Alfred Matthew Yankovic, and he submitted his first song to Dr. Demento at the age of 16. Dr. Demento, who in fact just retired last year, is this famous radio personality who plays comedy and novelty records. During his second year of college, Al became a disc jockey at the college station KCPR, where he adopted the persona of Weird Al. Weird Al was a nickname that he originally received somewhat derogatorily, but when he was a DJ, he decided to just roll with it.
He embraced it.
Yeah. So in 1979, while performing at KCPR, Al recorded the song My Bologna, a parody of the Knack's My Sharona. Not having access to a studio, he used a bathroom at the station as an echo chamber to record the song. He would submit the song to Dr. Demento to good response, and he would meet the band The Knack and their lead singer Doug Ledger, who liked the song enough that he pitched it to Capitol Records to be released as a single. In 1980, Al performed his follow-up, Another One Rides the Bus, a parody of Queen's Another One Bites the Dust, on the Demento show, and he would make his first national televised appearance on The Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder. In 1983, Al would release his first studio album, appropriately called Weird Al Yankovic. His past underground hits, My Bologna and Another One Ride the Bus, joined new songs like Ricky and I Love Rocky Road, which was his first song to hit the charts. Ricky featured Al singing a duet with Tress MacNeille, who would go on to voice such cartoon characters as Babs Bunny, Gadget Hackwrench, and Dot Warner. And finally, in 1984, Al released his follow-up album, Weird Al Yankovic, in 3D. The album featured such songs as Eat It, I Lost on Jeopardy, and King of Suede. The album would go on the Billboard 200 chart, going all the way up to 17, which is a big accomplishment for a comedy music album. Eat It would hit the U.S. charts, going all the way up to number 12, and the album would go platinum. The song Eat It would also win Al his first Grammy for Best Comedy Recording. And so this is where Al is in 1984 when we watched this special. And so we watched the ABC Saturday Morning Preview Park, directed by Barry Glazer, who mostly worked with Dick Clark. He worked on a number of Dick Clark's Rockin' New York's Eve specials. Weird Al Yankovic is playing himself. He also appeared in the movie UHF, and he is no stranger to cartoons. He also voiced the title character in the Disney series Milo Murphy's Law.
Well, I've seen that before.
It is hilarious. The legendary Don Messick is the voice of Scooby and Scrappy Doo in this special. Messick is an animation legend who was the original voice of Scooby-Doo. He was also the voice of Boo Boo in Yogi Bear, Astro and the Jetsons, Papa Smurf in the Smurfs, and Hampton J. Pig in Tiny Toon Adventures. And finally, we had appearances by Wolfman Jack as himself. Wolfman Jack is a legendary radio personality, and Missy Gold as herself, and she played the daughter on a TV show called Benson. Okay, well, we just hit a little turbulence in the time stream, had a little technical snafu along the way.
A kerfluffle, if you will.
But we are back, and we watched the ABC Saturday Morning Preview Park, which first aired on September 7th, 1984, and never re-aired.
What are we waiting for? Let's go!
Welcome to the ABC Saturday Morning Preview Park with special guest stars, the man who brought you Eat It, Weird Al Yankovic. From the hit series Benson, Missy Gold. And from the new series Wolf Rock TV, Wolfman Jack. Plus some very special appearances by some very special friends, Scooby and Scrappy Doo. Those awesome robots, the mighty Orbots. The high-powered sports car action of Turbo Teen. The comic adventures of Dirk the Daring and Dragon's Lair. The music videos and cartoon fun of Wolf Rock TV. And their hip-talking, moonwalking mascot, Bopper. All coming up on the ABC Saturday Morning Preview Park, right after these messages.
In fact, this was lost media for many years, and they did not rediscover it until December.
I wonder how they rediscovered it.
Someone must have video recorded it.
I guess that makes sense.
It may have been in some TV archive and someone found it, but my guess is someone recorded it, because when it was found and someone uploaded it to YouTube, where if you're following along and you don't have your own time machine, you can watch it that way.
Right.
The person uploaded it and it had the original commercials. We open up as we are informed that Benson will not be seen tonight, so that we can bring you the following presentation. And interesting thing, I decided, Benson, that's a show I remember liking when I was a kid. I wonder if I can watch it today.
What was the name of that again?
It was called Benson, and it was about the butler who worked for the governor of California. And the dynamic was that the butler was actually really smart and the politician was scatterbrained. And it had kind of an interesting character arc because as the show starts, Benson is just a butler, and by the end of the series, Benson is running for political office himself. But I went to see if there was any place you could watch it online, and it is free to stream on Tubi, but they only have the first and seventh series on there. Yeah.
Neat.
So it just sort of jumps from Benson just being a butler to Benson being a budding politician of his own, because 6 seasons are missing.
Oh.
But anyway, that's a show we don't talk about much anymore, and I don't know why. I remember it being a good show, but I was like 6, so what did I know? We open up with Scooby-Doo and Scrappy Doo riding on a motorcycle with Al in a sidecar. I should note that these are the theme park mascot walk-arounds. They could not afford Who Framed Roger Rabbit technology in this TV special from 1984. They have arrived at Knott's Berry Farm, which Al calls a happening fun park, and Al is very excited about going on rides. Scrappy is excited about previewing the cartoons, and Scooby is excited about rides, cartoons, and food, but, he talks like Scooby, so Al can't understand him. Al asks what he said, and Scrappy responds by doing a Scooby-Doo impression, which seems a little insensitive. We then get a video package hyping up the show and the guests, followed by a commercial for McDonald's that's an entire film. The commercial, it's about this kid that's sad that his folks are paying all this attention to his baby sister, and naturally it gets resolved by a trip to McDonald's, but this thing may have lasted longer than the previous special.
Yeah, I was so confused at first when that was playing. I was like, is this part of it? Is this an ad?
Al, Scrappy, and Scooby are at the bumper cars, and Al is excited. He compares them to being on the freeway. Scooby wants to get food, but Al suggests that they have a race to help work up an appetite. Al asks them to pretend that they're driving up a souped-up sports car, which Scrappy compares to the one that we will see on Turbo Teen. Al tries to zoom off in his bumper car, but quickly discovers it has no brakes and crashes it off camera. And there's this big sign that says, like, boom, crash, sort of like it was in the Adam West Batman TV show. Al gets in another car, and the trio agree to race, with the winner getting a hot dog. We get footage of the three zipping around, and it's all sped up Benny Hill style. And suddenly the three are pulled over by a highway patrolman in a red bumper car. While Al and Scooby try to talk themselves out of a speeding ticket, Scrappy introduces our first show, Turbo Teen, and what a show this was.
Yeah. And on the topic of hot dogs, I don't think I've had a good hot dog in a while. They've all just been kind of mid.
I'm a big fan of Sam's Hot Dog Stand on Fifth Avenue. I know there's a lot of people who like Stewart's, but the guy who owned Stewart's said some pretty nasty things a few years ago, so I'm all about Sam's with their spicy sauce.
Oh, that sounds good. I don't think I've actually gone there, but my mom has mentioned going there before, so I'll have to try it out.
Turbo Teen was a show about a boy who turns into a car. It was produced by Ruby Spears, best known for making the Alvin and the Chipmunks cartoon. It was founded by Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. They are actually the creators of Scooby-Doo. But when they saw how much money their creation was making for Hanna-Barbera, they went off and started their own animation studio.
Nice.
They made some very, very weird shows, this being one of them. I do wonder if this show inspired the Werecar episode of Futurama.
Maybe.
Because I'm wondering, it is about a guy who turns into a car, a werecar, if you will. And I was wondering if this was like someone's response to GoBots and Transformers, like, oh, we got these robots that turn into vehicles. Well, what about a guy who turns into a vehicle? And somewhere along the way, someone had to realize, oh, you can't make a toy of that look good.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like one of those like references, or like how Family Guy and Simpsons makes like very obscure references.
Yeah. We do see the full transformation sequence from the show, and it is basically David Cronenberg body horror for kids.
Ooh.
And someone must have had high hopes for the show because they got a famous guy to narrate it. I thought it might have been Dan LaFontaine, but it wasn't. It was like, must have been like ABC's answer to him. It was the previously on MacGyver guy. And he says, he's lean, he's mean, he's a mighty machine, and when he puts 4 on the floor, he becomes something more.
That's kind of catchy, honestly.
Yes, this was a very weird show. So we cut back to our heroes, Al, Scooby, and Scrappy, and they find a cave marked Dragon's Lair. Al argues that he's brave enough to venture into it because he was the first on a roller coaster. Scooby and Scrappy don't argue with him on this, and we hear some roars, we see these crudely animated dragon's eyes in the cave, and Al says he's not afraid of coming in, but coming out again. Scrappy suggests that if Dirk the Daring was here, he'd know what to do. Dirk is the star of the video game Dragon's Lair, who is getting his own cartoon this fall. And Scrappy suggests that Dirk would pick up a torch and walk right into the cave. So Al picks up a torch and asks for light. Suddenly a burst of flame comes out from the cave and lights the torch ablaze. Al in the game decides to leave the Dragon's Lair to Dirk. And Faith, have you ever played Dragon's Lair?
I don't believe I have.
It's an interesting piece of video game history. It started a short-lived run of arcade games that were basically Laserdisc players. And as a piece of animation, it's stunning. It had animation done by Don Bluth. But as a actual game, it was basically a glorified DVD menu. It was all quick-time events. So you would be watching this gorgeous Don Bluth cartoon, and an arrow would flash on screen, and you'd have to hit up on the joystick or hit a button. And if you weren't fast enough, you would get a bad end where Dirk would meet some sort of demise.
Huh.
And
such a fun game.
Yeah, it wasn't that much fun to play, but it was famous and influential. And I do feel that the Dragon's Lair Saturday morning cartoon, which was also a Ruby Spears joint, I feel that the creators of that show were behind the 8-ball because they were working on a TV budget. It would be inevitably compared to a Don Bluth theatrical quality animation, which is what we got in the video game. That said, I didn't think the show looked half bad. It's about a knight going off on adventures with a princess, and there is a dragon who's a recurring villain.
Yeah.
The gang arrives at a video arcade to meet with Missy Gold, and she has a surprise for them, and the surprise turns out to be a robot named Orby. Al invites Orby to lunch, but Missy informs them that while they have been waiting, Orby has been enjoying the video games, and by enjoying, that means he eats the video games. Orby came to talk about an exciting new show called The Mighty Orbots, and he says that they are very powerful, very strong, and superhuman. I cannot do a good robot voice.
You're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I guess I'm doing an okay Orby. Luke Ski, who is a comedy magician who has an animation podcast, he actually beat us to this special. He just did an episode on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he speculated that it was Frank Welker doing the robot because he sounds sort of like Go-Go the Dodo from Tiny Toon Adventures.
Oh.
And when in doubt with an 80s cartoon, guess that it's Frank Welker doing the voice.
Yeah.
We've talked about him quite a bit on the show. So Orby goes off for a snack and off camera takes a bite out of a Ferris wheel. And I did a little research. There is currently no Ferris wheel at Knott's Berry Farm, so Orby must have eaten it.
Must have.
So Al and Scrappy and Scooby run off to try and stop the robot, and Missy and Joy introduces a clip from the Mighty Orbots. And this clip was narrated by Gary Owens, who is most famous for playing Space Ghost. I don't think he did the voice on Space Ghost Coast to Coast, though, but he did the original OG Space Ghost.
Right.
This show was a joint production between MGM and the anime studio, TMS. And after the 2 Ruby Spears cartoons we watched, I'd say this preview looks very different and very cool. The show is about 6 humanoid robots that combine into one giant robot to fight evil. And the series lasted only 1 season of 13 episodes, mostly due to a lawsuit between the show's creators and the toy maker Tonka, who accused them of causing brand confusion with their GoBots franchise.
I don't know how that would cause confusion, but
Well,
whatever makes the money.
I mean, I guess they wanted the only transforming robots cartoon on the air, which would have put them in a awkward situation because the same year Transformers came out and totally ate the GoBots for lunch.
Yeah, that would make sense. You talking about that actually kind of reminded me of, I guess, the 2010s version of the Power Rangers, because they always had this like giant robot that they all controlled or something like that.
Yeah, this actually looks a little more like Voltron. It's just the robots are autonomous rather than being piloted. But there must have been something in the water in 1984 because we had GoBots, we had Transformers, we had Mighty Orbots, we had Voltron. And so just 84 was the year of the robot.
I guess so.
But the show looked neat, and this is a show that I would gladly do an episode on.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, we have Al and the gang visiting a miniature town, or it may have been like the set outside of a ride, but, there's little cars, there's a miniature building, and Scrappy wants to know if the Littles are here. Scooby thinks they're too big to find them, but Al introduces our next show, which is called The Littles, and this was one of the more successful cartoons of the time. The show was about little mouse-sized people that have adorable little teeth and little mouse tails. And the show ran for 3 seasons and had a theatrical movie called Here Comes the Littles. The show was produced by DIC, and this was another co-production with the anime studio TMS, so it had very good animation. I remember the show's theme song being a complete earworm.
Really?
We are littles, do-do-do-do-do-do-do. You can't stop the littles 'cause the littles don't stop.
That's a cute little song.
Yeah, I don't remember the full lyrics, but that's another show that I'd be happy to revisit.
Mm-hmm.
And we got more commercials. We got commercials for M&M's, Colgate toothpaste, and the premiere of a new show called Who's the Boss? And that was pretty successful. We returned to find Al at the top of a parachute ride. Al invites Scooby and Scrappy to join him. Scooby says that it's too high, and I relate with Scooby. I do not like... I enjoy going to theme parks, but I don't like heights.
Yeah, not a fan of heights myself, despite loving roller coasters.
I'm not a roller coaster person. My favorite theme park's Epcot. You just get in the little cart, you go up into Spaceship Earth, you learn about the universe, and then you slowly go down.
That sounds pretty cool. I've never been to Epcot or anything Disney related, unfortunately.
Well, I'd recommend visiting, but the prices are crazy right now.
I know.
So anyway, Scrappy says that they are about to check out the new season of Superfriends, which is confusingly titled Superfriends, the Legendary Superpowers Show. That's a little long. And Scrappy informs Al that the ride goes down at 100 miles per hour, and Scrappy is understandably freaking out. Al cries for help, and Scrappy sends Super Scooby to save him. Scooby accidentally breaks the emergency lever, and we get this sped-up footage of Al being yo-yoed on the ride, and you could not pay me to ride that thing.
Yeah. I went to Kings Island. I've been a few times. My favorite ride that at least I've been on was the Diamondback. That apparently goes like up to 80 miles an hour, which honestly, when you're on the ride, it doesn't seem like it, but maybe it's because it's so fast. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting they went to Knott's Berry Farm, which I'm guessing because it's near Los Angeles. That makes sense. But at the time the show was airing, there were several theme parks, including Kings Island, that had Hanna-Barbera characters. The other ones were Carowinds and King's Dominion.
Interesting.
But those are on the other side of the country. Anyway, on to Super Friends. We get the classic Super Friends theme, and Bill Woodson is narrating. And the heroes are joined by Firestorm, the Nuclear Man, a relatively new superhero from the comics. And I do remember being annoyed when I was a kid because they named the character Firestorm and he didn't have fire-based powers.
Did he have powers? And if so, what were they?
Well, Firestorm, his deal is basically you had two guys. You had this very bro-y college athlete and this stodgy professor, and they basically did the Dragon Ball fusion dance and merged into one guy. And being the Nuclear Man, he could rearrange matter on an atomic level, which meant the bad guys were frequently fighting outside of their weight class.
Yeah.
You know, there was one guy whose deal is that he was a master trapper who was very good with rope, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's really going to help you fight Firestorm.
Right.
Yeah, Super Friends is a classic, and it's got a lot of camp value, but I much prefer the season with the Legion of Doom and all the bad guys showing up.
Right.
Firestorm was this superhero that they were really, really trying to make the next big thing in the 80s, and I guess someone was buying it because his comic ran for like 100 issues.
That's a lot of issues.
But it's like just didn't really seem to take off. I mean, there hasn't been any talk of a Firestorm movie or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
And you'd think if like the Blue Beetle could get a movie, anyone could. And I like Blue Beetle, but so our heroes have decided they're going to go get their hot dogs, but they hear some music coming from a dance club, and Al recognizes the voice as Wolfman Jack. And Scrappy informs them that the Wolfman has his new show coming out this fall that features music videos and all sorts of neat things. Al wants to hit the dance floor, but Scooby says that he has 2 left feet, so Al pulls 2 rubber feet out and says that he has 2 right ones. We cut to Wolfman Jack working as a DJ in the dance club, and a bunch of kids are dancing. Al meets Jack, who introduces him to his parrot, Bopper, who says that he thinks he's funny, he's a right, and Rock, I'm your biggest fan. Of course, the parrot is talking to Wolfman Jack, not Al, so Al's a little embarrassed. Al wants to play a music video and goes up to the control panel, but he hits the wrong switch, and somehow we hear a record scratch, and he winds up wrapped up in a bunch of unspooled VHS tapes, so I'm not sure how he managed to get both the VHS machine and a record player malfunctioning, but he goofed. And Jack decides to take it upon himself to introduce a clip of Wolf Rock TV. And of all the shows that are featured in this special, this is the most mysterious one, because apparently a good amount of money was spent on it. It had that DIC/TMS animation, and it incorporated real music videos, but the show was canceled after only 7 episodes.
Oh.
And there is like only 1 episode online that you can watch. So someone uploaded it to the Internet Archive, and anyway.
Must have just been their favorite one.
Yeah. But our preview clip of Wolf Rock TV begins with a live-action cameo by Larry Bud Melman, who was a staple of Late Night with David Letterman. Apparently, the show incorporated live-action music videos, but we just saw a bunch of clips of Cleaning Up the Town by the Busboys off the Ghostbusters soundtrack. And the show was about the Wolfman running an independent TV station. He would have these kids helping him out. They would incorporate these real music videos, and he had a parrot sidekick named Bopper. But it's important to note that the live-action Bopper we saw earlier and the cartoon Bopper were 2 different types of parrots. They could not find a green parrot in time to make the show.
Oh, no.
But this is a show that I'm genuinely very curious about. So, back at the disco, Al and Scrappy are dancing, and Orby the robot is back showing off some very slick robot dance moves, at least by 80s standards. We probably had made advancements in robot dancing since then. Scrappy points out that a new season of American Bandstand is going to start, and that maybe Dick Clark could feature Orby on the show. Al suggests that Orby could do the robot, and Scrappy points out that this is offensive. It's political correctness gone amok. And Scrappy points out that Orby calls the dance the person. And we get a preview of the new season of American Bandstand hosted by Dick Clark. It's neither a cartoon or cartoon adjacent. It just aired on Saturday mornings, so I didn't really take notes on this one.
Yeah, it was actually mentioned in a book that I had to read for Appalachian literature, which think it's pretty interesting that it's being brought up now.
Yeah, that show was on for many, many years. I think it was on until like 1989.
Wow.
So the gang finally makes it to a restaurant. Al has a list of all the food they want to get. Scooby wants peanuts, which Al thinks are gross for some reason. And it turns out that the restaurant is closed and Scooby is very upset. Thankfully, Al packed an emergency lunch full of weird food items like hot fudge tacos and peanut butter pizza, and apparently Al is fine with peanut butter. Scooby is very happy, but Scrappy decides to sit this one out and introduces our next preview, the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries. And the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries has a very catchy disco theme song, about 4 years too late to catch in on the disco craze. I would consider this to be a little bit of an underrated addition to the Scooby-Doo canon. Some fans lump all the Scrappy seasons together, but I think this one is a marked improvement over Scooby and Scrappy Doo, and it's sort of a return to form, even if not all the characters are back. And I do like how in the intro, all the ghosts and monsters are dancing to the theme music. So we get some more commercials. We got one for Puppy Chow, AIM Toothpaste, a Barbara Walters special, and Monday Night Football, and a public service announcement on inappropriate touching, which that's no good.
Not at all.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. So Scooby and the gang are still outside of the restaurant. Scrappy suggests they recap the Saturday morning schedule, and the block starts with reruns of The Puppy's Greatest Adventures, a show with a little bit of a confusing history. It started as a TV special called The Puppy Who Wanted a Boy. Then it graduated to a TV series called The New Adventures of Puppy. Then it became The Puppy's Further Adventures. Then it became the Scooby and Scrappy Doo / Puppy Hour. And finally, it became The Puppy's Greatest Adventures. So for a show that wasn't on the air for that long, quite a bit of history.
Yeah, and name changes.
Oh, yeah. So this is followed by Superfriends, the legendary Superpowers team, another team that had a name change every season, followed by the Mighty Urbots, then Turbo Teen, then Dragonswear, then Wolf Rock TV. I cannot do the Wolfman Jack voice. Followed by the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries, then the Littles, and then the ABC Weekend Special. This was an anthology series with a different animated special each week. Most of them were adaptations of books, some of them very famous, some of them rather obscure. And this season they added a puppet host named O.G. Readmore. He was the cat who wanted kids to read more. And finally, the last show on the block was American Bandstand. We get a musical montage of all the shows. Finally, Al, Scooby, and Scrappy are back on their motorcycle / sidecar, and it's time to go. Al protests that they're going to zoom off without him, so he insists this time he drive the motorcycle. Suddenly, the sidecar zooms off and leaves Al behind, and that is the end. So, Faith, we watched another Saturday morning special last fall called Laugh Busters. How did this one compare to that?
This one was interesting, I guess. There was just like a lot going on, in my opinion, and it seemed like there were more ads than the show itself.
Well, that's how television was back in the day.
Well, yeah.
But I thought, like, Laugh Busters was more interesting just because it had a very convoluted plot about a villain trying to destroy Saturday Morning. And this one is just, Weird Al, Scooby and Scrappy hanging out, having a good time at an amusement park and previewing all the cartoons. But in terms of actually selling the Saturday morning lineup, this one was the one that was like, yeah, I'd like to do an episode on The Littles. Yeah, I could do an episode on Wolf Rock TV. Man, Turbo Teen looks weird. So this one got me more excited to actually check out the cartoons.
I feel like, I guess when I was watching it beforehand, it felt like it was all over the place.
It was, but that's sort of ABC's Saturday morning lineup was all over the place.
I guess that makes sense then.
And were there any shows on the special that you were curious to check out?
Honestly, I guess The Littles would be a fun one to look into, and then any of like the Scooby-Doo shows that I haven't seen before. Because I'm a big fan of Scooby-Doo.
All right. Well, Faith, it's our 1-year anniversary, our Weird Alversary, our Scooby-versary, and I was just wondering, so far, are there any future shows moving forward that you're looking forward to doing?
I guess anything with Scooby-Doo would be interesting to look into, because I don't... Have we done any Scooby episodes? I can't remember.
We haven't done Scooby proper, but we may do that very soon.
Yeah, I think we'll have to.
We will. And I'd like to do that. I'd like to look at some early 2000s cartoons.
Oh, yeah.
Because we've been in the 80s and the 90s quite a bit. Maybe some 70s cartoons, but some of those are a little harder to find.
Yeah.
And with the cast of Gas being, it's a little hard to go back to the 70s. Partially because you get there and gas is also high by 70s standards, which is odd because our time machine is not a DeLorean.
Yeah.
But now, I was also wondering, do you have a favorite cartoon that we've looked at on the show so far?
Honestly, I think I enjoyed the Care Bears episode. That one was a fun one.
That was fun. Darkwing Duck and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers was fun.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised by Tales from the Crypt Keeper.
Honestly, yeah.
And do you have a favorite episode of the show?
I'm trying to think. I think the My Little Pony episode went pretty well, but we've had a good few episodes where I was like, this went pretty well.
Yeah, I liked the My Little Pony one. I really liked the Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers one because I think we've had Nolan several times on the show before, but I think that's the one that's just clicked the best and captured his manic energy the best.
Yeah.
So, Faith, it's time to cue up the game show music.
Ooh.
And we are going to play a game called Weird Algorithms.
Oh, man.
Weird Al Yankovic is the most famous comedy musician, but he's just one of many. I'm going to read you a lyric, and you guess whether it's from a Weird Al song or one of his contemporaries.
Okay.
All right. Lyric 1. 'Cause I've got cats, and I've got Netflix. I've got games, and I've got snack mix. And I'm going to stay indoors for 4 or 5 months or more.
I want to say, like, a contemporary. That was what it was, right?
Yeah, you are correct. It's from a song called Cats and Netflix by the Double Clicks. They're a pair of sisters who sing a bunch of nerdy songs. And that is a song about how they are not going to come outside during the winter because they got cats and Netflix.
I wouldn't either. It's too cold.
All right. Song number 2. Now that I got kids, you know what really makes me sore? That there's nothing good on Saturday morning anymore. No Superfriends, Scooby-Doo, Smurfs, or Bugs Bunny. CBS in the morning. That's supposed to be funny?
I want to say that's one of his songs.
It is not. It's from a song called In the 80s by Insane Ian.
Interesting.
All right. There's no more time for crying over spilled milk. Now it's time for crying in your beer. Settle down. raise a family, join the PTA, buy some sensible shoes and a Chevrolet, then party till you're broke and they drag you away.
That's a loaded lyric. That one could be Weird Al.
It is Weird Al. It's from a song called Dare to Be Stupid. So you're at 2 points. You need one more to win.
Ooh.
This whole survival of everyone in Middle-earth's the burden. I'm Token. You think it's easy? What kind of pipe weed you smoking? Man, I'm not joking. I'll take you back a year or 60 before I even had a multi-disc extended DVD.
I want to say that's a contemporary, but it could also be a Weird Al song.
All right, well, which one? One or the other?
I'll go with Weird Al.
Oh, you're wrong. That is from Stealin' Like a Hobbit by the great Luke Ski, who also has his own animation podcast, which it's called like Luke Ski's Animation and Things.
Oh, okay.
All right. Last song. The picture's crystal clear and everything is magnified. Robert De Niro's mole has got to be 10 feet wide. Everybody in town can hear those 90,000 watts of Dolby sound. And I'm proud to say, now I can watch The Simpsons from 30 blocks away.
Is that Weird Al?
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
It is. It's a song called Frank's 2000-inch TV by Weird Al Yankovic. You have won this episode.
Woohoo!
All right. Now, Faith, I think it's time to make a little change because we've been spending so much time in the 80s and 90s. Nostalgia, it has 25-year cycles, and people are looking back at the early 2000s, and they're watching the Lord of the Rings movies. They're listening to punk pop. They're starting illegal wars. And so I think we should watch a cartoon from the early 2000s, and I think we should do Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh, I love Courage the Cowardly Dog. That was my jam as a kid.
All right.
Which, funny enough, most of my friends never watched it when they were kids because they were terrified of it.
Oh, well, we may watch a scary episode. We may watch a funny episode. It's hard to tell with that show.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll be back after spring break. And anything you'd like to say to our listeners before we head out?
Make sure to bring your bell-bottom jeans, low-rise jeans, whatever the 2000s brought. I was a kid, so I wore these weird little checker print shorts or whatever.
I think checker prints were more of a late 90s fashion, but I'm sure they were still around.
Well, early 2000s more so than 2010s, I suppose. I don't know.
And I just remember everyone having those awful frosted tips haircuts.
Oh my gosh. I remember these jelly shoes.
Oh.
Those were something.
Well, we'll be back with, I'll try and get some frosted tips in my squirrel fur. And we'll see you after spring break, folks.
See you next time. Bye-bye.